Hello everyone, and welcome back to actually having to look at your own loot again, where today we are going over the 10 Revenant weapons that dropped with Episode 2. There are 6 currently available. We have another 2 coming in Act 2, another 2 coming in Act 3, another Brimstone coming right now. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. And we're going to start things off with Exuviae, which is a 120 RPM stasis aggressive frame hand cannon. The only other one being something new. Yes, that's correct. From Solstice. So this can actually get like a pretty wide range of good rolls, but because it's a stasis weapon, we're obviously going to be taking a look at the 2 stasis-themed perks, one of them being Headstone, which you're probably familiar with. Then we have a new one called Rhyme Stealer. Destroying a stasis crystal or defeating a frozen target with this weapon grants you Frost Armor. I am currently working on a Titan build video that uses Frost Armor quite heavily, so while something like this seems pretty appropriate for something like that, the amount of Frost Armor that I'm getting in that build completely negates the need to pick up something like Rhyme Stealer in the first place. I mainly want Headstone to generate those crystals. So this is kind of like, it depends on your build, right? If you're doing stasis-y stuff, if you're doing stuff with Frost Armor, but maybe not too much Frost Armor, and you want a way to sort of have some passive damage resistance, you can totally go with Rhyme Stealer. Otherwise, like, you got keep away here. You got stats for all. You got even triple tap. I've been using the triple tap Headstone one that Bungie just gave me for free for doing the story stuff, right? Like, all of these are like pretty good options. I just think a lot of people are going to want to go full stasis with it. I will say this hand cannon does have a pretty slow reload and only 8 shots in the mag. So if you are going to go without any sort of a reload anything, I would maybe pick up some kind of a mag perk. And I would also really start paying attention to Dark Aether Reaper, which refills your magazine. It's very, very handy when you see it out just kind of floating there. Give it a shot. It is worth interacting with, especially with some of the bonuses that we have in the artifact as well. If you are going to be using this thing for any sort of stasis type builds, keep track of Dark Aether Reaper. Hi, I'm a large child here to tell you about our sponsor, Rocket Money. I've recently learned that Rocket Money isn't what Jeff Bezos calls his paychecks to the employees of his rocket ship company, but rather a personal finance app that helps you save money by keeping track of your personal spending. One big feature is the ability to keep track of and cancel paid subscriptions that you might have forgotten about. I just learned I'm still paying GeoGuessr $4 a month. I haven't played it this year. So thanks, Rocket Money. And sorry, GeoGuessr, but I mean, I guess enjoy the free money. It can also help you manage your money by giving you an overview of your expenses and can also help lower your bills, which I've been told is 100% legal, which also happens to be the best way to describe most things. So if you're 100% legal, head on over to rocketmoney.com/Datto to get started for free today, or hit the link in the description. That's rocketmoney.com/Datto, or the link in the description to get started for free today. Thank you very much to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Now, if you don't want to go with a stasis theme, I mean, stats for all, one for all. You guys know I love stats for all, one for all. You also have explosive payload. You maybe do keep away explosive payload or something like that. You want to go a little more traditional. It's just that I tend to skew more towards the subclass traits on a lot of these kinds of weapons because, you know, we've had so many weapons come out already that if you really want like a stats for all, one for all hand cannon, I'm sure there's something out there that will appease you, or an explosive payload hand cannon, or a frenzy hand cannon, or a desperate measures hand cannon, or a precision instrument hand cannon. Maybe you're looking at PvP situations. That's why I normally like suggest like, you know, lean towards like the gifts that the weapon is giving, right? PvP wise, Lone Wolf is probably going to be turning some heads. This is just like some flat stat bonuses that you get, and they're increased when you're not nearby anybody. So if you wanted to do like a Lone Wolf precision instrument, I know precision instrument was popular on a recent hand cannon for PvP purposes, so maybe like a Lone Wolf precision instrument type thing, or maybe you just want to go a little more traditional with the keep away. Those are also totally fine. Next up, we have Liturgy, which is the first double fire grenade launcher that does not have the word wild in its name. The other two are Wilder Flight, which is a Nightfall reward, and then we had Wild Style, which was from Spire the Watcher, final boss. This time around, we have what a surprise, another stasis-themed weapon over here. If you do want to go Rhyme Stealer Chill Clip, if you want to just go all in on stasis, I totally understand. It's probably going to be one of the most popular picks, especially because something like Disorienting Grenades is here, and With Rhyme Stealer, I mean, you don't need to actually kill stuff to activate it. You can just destroy a stasis crystal. So if you're making a lot of crystals, then you can use Rhyme Stealer, or you can use this rather, to generate frost armor while also blinding some targets, while also slowing and potentially freezing some targets. So I can definitely see a world where people are just all in on the stasis on this particular GL. Now, if you're not doing something like that, I imagine you're probably going Slideways or maybe Envious Arsenal, which is a new perk that is basically like bait and switch, but it's for reloading your weapon instead of giving you a damage bonus. But Slideways, I know, has been kind of like a fan favorite because you can just literally slide to reload. There's a brief internal cooldown, so you can't just keep spamming slide over and over again. But it's a pretty short one. I mean, it can't be triggered again while the buff is active. The buff is removed on stow. So, you know, if you really want to crank out a lot of grenade shots, you totally can with Slideways. And also, like, there's not really that many other, like, reload things here. Like, yeah, sure, Perpetual Motion, okay. And then Envious Arsenal, sure, but you have to, like, cycle through your whole suite of weapons if you really want to trigger that, which, you know, I'm not, like, trying to downplay it or anything because it's a very powerful effect. But some people are just going to want to sit there and, you know, just spam their grenade launcher a whole bunch of times, right? Second column wise, if you're not going with Chill Clip, I imagine a lot of people are hitting up Chain Reaction. Maybe you are hitting up a one for all situation, since the double fire grenades, I mean, it's literally 2 grenades, which means it's pretty likely that you're going to hit a lot of targets with a shot, making one for all very easy to trigger. But the same kind of advice for this weapon I apply to pretty much all weapons. If it's giving you a specific subclass thing to interact with, probably trend that direction, unless you just don't have anything, or maybe you have like a very special use case for something like this where, you know, you do want the chain reaction, or you do want swashbuckler because you're doing some sort of a, you know, a melee kill based thing, whatever you're doing. Lead from Gold is also a very good perk. I don't know if I'm taking it on its own. Like, if I do take Lead from Gold, I'm probably mixing it with some sort of thing that is like more beneficial than just like Perpetual Motion or Envious Arsenal or something like that. I would want to mix it with like Strategist or Rhyme Stealer, something like that. Otherwise, yeah, I think most people are going to be kind of trending in this direction, at the very least this direction, maybe throwing in Disorienting Grenades. It's very, very popular. It makes a lot of sense with these 2 perks as well. But yeah, Slideways is probably the next, followed by Envious Arsenal in the first column, and then, yeah, you have One for All. I mean, even Desperate Measures is good, Chain Reaction good, like, most of the things here are good. Next up, we have Vantage Point, which I hope is better than the movie that came out with the same name. You guys remember Vantage Point? Anyway, we have an ARC Adaptive Frame Pulse Rifle here in Vantage Point, the first since Season 13. So it's been a while since we've gotten an Adaptive Frame Pulse Rifle, ARC Pulse Rifle. Bungie was giving this out for free as just part of like a, you know, doing the story type reward, but it came with stats for all Volt Shot. But you can't get Volt Shot on this pulse. It's Jolting Feedback, which is a different jolt perk with a different kind of function. So I don't know if that was just a mistake. I don't know if that was Bungie just maybe being like, hey, this is like a unique reward you can only get from doing this, so you should save it. Maybe just save it until they say something. If they do end up saying something, I'm not really sure. But we have a new Jolt perk with Jolting Feedback. Repeated damage with this weapon inflicts Jolt. It's designed for more sustain type damage. You know, you're chunking away at like a bigger target, as opposed to Volt Shot, which is where you get the ability to jolt a target after killing something and you reload. So you're able to kind of like apply it to a bunch of different things. I'm still not 100% on how I feel about Jolting Feedback. It only takes 4 bursts to activate on this pulse rifle, and when you're amplified, I believe it's 3 or like 2 to 3, so you can trigger it pretty quickly. So it might not be like the worst thing to like tag a big enemy a few times with the pulse rifle, get jolt triggered, and then switch to something a little more hefty to actually take down the target. But I kind of like, I liken it to Vorpal Weapon on a primary, where it's like, okay, sure, you're doing more boss damage, but you're also using a primary weapon against a boss target. Like, you shouldn't be doing that in the first place. So I'm getting like similar vibes from that, but as long as you just trigger it, put it on a big enemy, and then maybe you're trying to AoE down like other groups of enemies that are around the big enemy, sure, that works as well. But I wouldn't just like jolt a target and then if there's nothing else around, just like continue to shoot your pulse rifle. I would switch to a different weapon. I imagine this is going to be probably one of the most popular perks on this weapon. You do have One for All. You do have Headseeker for the PvPers out there. Focus Fury, I'm kind of sleeping on. Desperado, I'm kind of sleeping on. High Impact Reserves, I'm definitely sleeping on. First column, you actually have like a pretty good range of stuff. Eddy Current got buffed a little while ago, but if you're doing any sort of amplification, anything, I mean, this is kind of like a no-brainer because you also want to be amplified for jolting feedback. So any sort of amplify play, you are actually going to want to go with Eddy Current. Now, if you're not going specifically with an amplify play, then you're maybe looking at something like Keep Away. You're looking at something like Stats for All, maybe even like a Lone Wolf, although I kind of push Lone Wolf more towards PvP because you don't really need a crazy amount of like aim assist, airborne effectiveness in PvE type settings. Closing Time is also a new perk, improves range, accuracy, and handling as the magazine gets lower. Also probably something that I'm leaning more towards PvP. Maybe you want to do some sort of a Closing Time high impact reserves where your magazine gets stronger and stronger as you deplete it. I could see maybe something kind of happening there. But me personally, if I am picking this up, I am probably going to be going with jolting feedback. And I mean, I really like Stats for All, but if I am thinking that I want to do some sort of an amplification type build with this pulse rifle, then I'm probably leaning more towards Eddy Current. Next up, we have Insurmountable, which is a void precision frame sidearm. Not many of these around. As with what feels like basically every void weapon to come out now, if you want repulsor brace destabilizing rounds, it's there for you. I mean, there's just like a lot of good perks on the sidearm. I've used this sidearm a little bit. I just didn't even really like the shooting part of the gun. Like, it's not for me. I didn't really like the experience of using this thing in the first place, at least in PvE. So I'm probably going to be ignoring it. But like, there's a lot of good stuff on here, right? I mean, second column, destabilizing, sure, okay. Desperate Measures, One for All, Surrounded, Rampage. I mean, even Harmony has like some potential viability here. Closing Time for the PvPers out there. You want to do like a Lone Wolf Closing Time kind of situation, you can totally do that. First column, I mean, you have Repulsor Brace to the Pain's more of a PvP thing. Threat Detectors, okay. Maybe you do Threat Detector Surrounded type deal since, you know, Onslaught is back. You are going to be surrounded by a lot of enemies a lot of the time. So that's not the worst idea. I don't know if I'm exactly going Attrition Orbs. Demo's always like kind of a good perk. I don't think I'm going Air Trigger though. So there's a lot of stuff on here. It's just that the sidearm itself, I just didn't like it. I just did not like shooting it. I did not like the experience of shooting this particular weapon. So I'm probably going to be skipping out unless I see like a really good reason to hop in on the sidearm. But there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff to combine. It's just a matter of how do you want to combine it? What perks do you like? Are you doing some sort of a void setup? Do you just want to do, you know, shoot enemy, right? You do a threat detector. You do a demo One for All. You do a demo Rampage, a demo Surrounded, something like that. There's a lot of room to experiment here. Next up, we have Sovereignty, which is a void 90 RPM adaptive sniper rifle featuring a new perk, which is what I imagine people are mainly going to be hunting down on this thing for reasons I'll talk about, which is Withering Gaze, which is essentially box breathing, but it applies weaken to your target instead of giving you like bonus damage and stuff. There are some weaken effects in the artifact right now, like stuff that like meshes with weaken. So I could see people maybe trying to do something with the sniper along those means. I could also maybe see like a Discord play. Discord didn't like really take off, and Discord appears on another weapon that we'll talk about in a moment. I could maybe see a world where like you're trying to do some Discord like free weaken effects with your sniper, especially with all the buffs that snipers just got. They got a pretty hefty buff. Haven't seen too much of them just yet in the episode, but it's only been out for like what, 3 days now, 2 days now. Otherwise, this doesn't have like your necessarily like traditional sniper damage perks on it, right? Like, sure, it's got precision instrument, sure, it's got firing line, but in the first column, like, you're missing your rewind rounds, you're missing fourth time's the charm, you're missing those more traditional perks. So this sniper is more for like non-boss damage rolls, and Bungie is trying to push snipers a little bit more in those non-boss situations, especially with the recent buff that they just got, right? So if you do want to just kind of use it more traditionally, enlightened action, precision instrument, enlightened action, firing line, something like that. I'm not sure yet how valuable the Withering Gaze effect necessarily is just yet. Like, I don't know how much I really want it in the kit. Like, do I want to devote an entire weapon slot specifically to just applying weaken when I could probably do it in other ways? Not too sure yet, but I imagine this is probably what people are going to be trying out first. And then after that, it's kind of like a we'll see situation. Precision instrument, I think, is maybe what people will lean towards next, because it doesn't require any sort of other triggers. You don't need to be nearby people, but you do need to hit your shots. I could also see desperate measures as a result doing something similar, where you get a quick grenade kill, you pop some shots on your sniper, maybe you even combine it with discord to get some just free damage, right? Or free as in like you don't have to actually use your ammo because you're proccing discord on the sniper. Yeah, I'm not too sold on this effect yet. I'm not too sold just yet. Next up, we have Bittersweet, which is an adaptive frame arc GL. And the main thing that people are going to be really zooming in on here is Envious Arsenal and Bait and Switch. I mean, these perks literally could not go more together. Bait and Switch is built around switching all your weapons around. Envious Arsenal is based around the exact same thing. So as far as damage grenade launchers go, this is probably what people are going to be really looking for. You do also have jolting feedback on here. I'm not exactly sold on that just yet. GLs are, they're pretty popular right now. They're pretty good, but I think they have a lot of other things going on that I wouldn't want to prioritize jolt on this thing. Like, other weapons, I think, do jolt a little bit better. And if I'm using a GL, I typically want a lot of damage. I'm not saying you can't use it, but typically, like, I want bait and switch. I want even cascade point. I want explosive light. I want damage. That's really what I want, is damage. I would take harmony, right? Harmony giving you a bonus, a little chunk of bonus damage here, right? Reverberation, I'm kind of sleeping on that. Envious Arsenal, as we just mentioned. Stats for all, always like a pretty good pick unless you're doing purely single target. You do have Unrelenting here as well. Unrelenting's, kind of had like a little bit of resurgence, but I'm still probably not. Again, like, bait and Envious Arsenal is, I imagine, what people are really going to be doing. Loose change, if you want to do like a loose change jolting feedback kind of a deal, like, okay, but yeah, I think this one's a bit more clear. I think this is a bit more Envious Arsenal bait and switch, or Envious Explosive Light, or Envious Cascade Point. I think that's it. Or, I mean, even if you wanted to do an Envious Jolting, you could totally do that as well. Next, we're rolling into the Act 2 and Act 3 weapons. I'm not sure of the order of them. I'm not sure like when comes out when, so we'll just have to wait and see here. First up, we have Noxious Vetiver, which is a 600 RPM arc submachine gun precision frame. The last time we got one of these, Season 10, with freaking Warmind cells, the 7th Seraph weapons. So it has actually been a little while since we've gotten a 600 RPM arc SMG. Now, we have had quite a lot of good arc SMGs recently. Subjunctive, Ikelos, like if you're using either one of those, you're probably in a good position. I've been using Subjunctive with Stats for All and Volt Shot. Volt Shot, very, very easy to use on an SMG. This one comes with jolting feedback. So I think it just depends on how you like to deploy jolt on targets, and that will kind of influence which SMG that you're going to use. Or maybe also, like, you just prefer 600 RPMs over like a 720 or a 900, right? If you are going to go with this, jolting feedback, loose change is also here to kind of pair up with it. Applying an elemental debuff gives you the reload speed, and you are going to want to reload pretty frequently to apply jolt to big targets. Yeah, I still think I'm kind of leaning more towards Volt Shot, but again, I have not really used jolting feedback too much just yet. I haven't really been in a huge hurry to use a freaking pulse rifle, and this does not come out for at minimum another 40 days. It could be like 90 days for all we know. So for now, I'm going to lean towards subjunctive. Otherwise, what else do we have on this thing? Target lock is around, frenzy's around. I'm probably not going on vorpal weapon. I don't know if I'm necessarily going on redirection. Desperate measures is probably a good pick with all the ability spam that we have now. Rampage, it's a little more classic. I'd probably maybe lean towards desperate measures. It's a very slight decrease in the maximum damage. But, I mean, Rampage, it also works, right? Especially maybe you're like a Peacekeeper Titan, right? Because Peacekeeper's just got that insane buff. I've been using Huckleberry this whole time, basically. First column does leave a little to be desired. We have an uncommon Thresh in the first column here, though. You recall I did a video, or I did a YouTube short on Thresh on Fatebringer, because you could get Thresh and a damage perk at the same time on the Fatebringer, and that was doing a lot for Celestial Nighthawk hunters. So maybe there is a similar play to make here with Thresh and Desperate Measures, Thresh and Rampage, Thresh and maybe just want to go Frenzy and just have like a reload speed bonus as well. Maybe not as high on the damage, but at least you get a little reload speed. Otherwise, I'm probably skipping on Attrition Orbs and probably skipping on Unrelenting. Pugilist, has something there if you want to do some sort of a melee setup, but otherwise, it's kind of like a mishmash. There's some stuff here, but I do think loose change jolting feedback is probably going to be the thing that people experiment with the most right off the rip, for similar reasons that I mentioned towards the beginning of the video. If the game's giving you some sort of a subclass thing, people like to play with the subclass thing on their primary weapon. Next up, we have Red Tape, which is a 200 RPM lightweight stasis scout rifle. We also got at the same time Live Fire, which is a precision frame. It's a 180 RPM stasis scout rifle, which is a world drop, as opposed to this, which is an episode drop. But either way, you're probably looking at immediately Rhyme Stealer Headstone. These are the stasis perks to go get on this thing. And then otherwise, it just has like your kind of traditional good scout rifle stuff. It's got your 4 times the charm. It's got One for All. It's got Keep Away. It's got Demo. It's got Explosive Payload. I know people still really like Explosive Payload on their scout rifles. But these are still, they are things that you can get in other places. So unless you specifically want a stasis weapon for a stasis thing, which maybe you do for this episode, because there are some things that trigger on rapid precision stasis weapon hits, right? Unless you want a stasis weapon in particular, like, again, you're probably going Rhyme Stealer Headstone. Otherwise, you can get a lot of these things in other places. You might already have it in your vault already, just kind of rotting away. Some of you out there are probably still freaking using Night Watch, right? You want to lean towards the stasis stuff. And if you don't, you lean towards the traditional. Your Keep Away One for All. Your 4th times One for All. I probably wouldn't go for Focus Fury. I wouldn't go High Impact. You can maybe do Adrenaline Junkie. I don't know if I'm going Rampage. It's a little slow, especially in higher end content. Explosive Payload is, a pretty well-liked community perk. But nothing too dramatic here. Next up, we have Heretic's Fervor, which is a 25 RPM aggressive frame stasis rocket. If you are going kind of like El Clasico damage, boss damage type weapon, the main thing that I'm looking at is auto-loading holster and explosive light, or maybe bipod. It does not get more classic than auto-loading explosive light. Auto-loading, just keep in mind, did get a small nerf. You do have to wait a little bit longer for the game to automatically reload your weapons when using auto-loading holster. Now, if you're not going with the classic, boss damage setup, things open up a little bit more for you. I mean, you could even really go field prep if you wanted to. Just kind of depends on the loadout that you're using at the time. Like, do you need auto-loading, or do you just want to fire off a bunch of rockets? Obviously, we have more stasis things with Rhyme Stealer and Chill Clip. If you want to kind of just do this more as like a fun onslaught, slaying out kind of a weapon, as opposed to just holding onto your rocket launcher the entire time, you can maybe even do Rhyme Stealer Bipod to get a few more rockets into the game, since, I imagine even like a bipod rocket is going to wipe out a pretty substantial wave of enemies without too much issue. Slide Shot, if you wanted to go that direction, I'm personally I'm good on that, but I know a lot of people like it. Otherwise, Harmony, you could do like a Harmony situation with Rhyme Stealer, get a little extra bonus damage if you wanted to. I don't know if I'm going Vorpal, maybe like an auto-loading Vorpal, I guess, or like an auto-loading Frenzy, I guess. But the main direction I'm leaning in would be auto-loading and explosive light, or Rhyme Stealer Chill Clip, or Rhyme Stealer with bipod to have a little bit more fun with some stasis stuff. Finally, we have Scavenger's Fate, Precision Frame Void Shotgun. Most recently, we had Retold Tale from Season of the Wish. So if you were hunting one of those down, you probably have one, or you've probably learned that you don't want to have one of those. Repulsor Destabilizing. It's here. Again, it was also on the Root of Nightmare shotgun, Nessa's Oblation. Nessa's Oblation. Did I get that right? I did. Hooray. I got it right. So it's here again if you want it. I'm pretty sure it's on Retold Tale as well. It's here if you want it. I'm personally, now, call me crazy, Discord Harmony. Okay? You get kills with other weapons. You switch to the shotgun. You get 20% bonus damage. And anytime you get a kill, you refund your ammo. I'm just saying. It could be a neat little thing to play around with. I'm just saying. Right? This is mainly the combo that I think I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to see if I like it. Otherwise, we don't have 1-2 punch on this thing. We don't have trench barrel on this thing. Those are kind of like the premier shotgun perks. So you are going to have to get maybe a little more creative. We're looking at desperate measures. We're maybe even looking at surrounded, because we are going to be surrounded quite a lot in Onslaught. It is Onslaught season. So this is going to get a pretty substantial effect. If you did want to go like a little more tame, sure, you could go Frenzy, right? Closing time, that's maybe more of a PvP thing. You are going to have a very small mag. I don't even know how the special ammo freaking system works in PvP anymore, but I'm guessing you're not loaded up on ammo all the time. So this could also have some sort of PvP utility. Combine that with Lone Wolf, maybe combine that with Slide Shot, something like that. But yeah, the main thing that I'm looking at Discord Harmony, because we don't have 1-2 punch, and I like using 1-2 punch, and we don't have Trench Barrel, and I'm actually looking for a Trench Barrel shotgun right now that isn't Ikelos, but I think I'm just going to stick with the Ikelos right now. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this out. I probably won't end up using it for the long term, but like, I think this is neat. I think Discord Harmony, it's a neat thing that you could maybe try out. That wraps up the episode weapons. Feel free to put your own commentary in the comments about like what kind of perk rolls you're hunting down. Overall, like I'm not, I feel like kind of middle of the road. You know, I'll probably get an exuviae. I don't know if I'm not really like a liturgy. I'm not really like a double fire grenade launcher kind of guy, so I'll probably skip that. Pulse rifles I kind of sleep on right now. Sidearm, I'm definitely sleeping on this. The sniper maybe can do something interesting with the Withering Gaze Discord, but I imagine I'm probably going to just stick to my more damage-oriented snipers. The grenade launcher, I think, is going to be good. I'm probably going to scoop one up with Envious and Bait and Switch at the very least. The SMG, I'm willing to try out with like a loose change, jolting feedback kind of a situation. The scout rifle, I'm probably going to sleep on. Don't forget about like Wicked Implement too. Like Wicked Implement this season is going to go absolutely crazy if you're into scout rifles. Heretic's Fervor, I will probably pick something up just for some more stasis fun and maybe to have like a backup, like, you know, auto loading explosive light in case we're doing some sort of stasis thing. And then Scavenger's Fate, as I said, I'm going to try out the Discord Harmony, but it wouldn't surprise me if I wasn't the most excited about this. So kind of middle of the road. Nothing's like really blowing me away, but you know, we have some decent offerings out here in episode 2. I'll have a Garden of Salvation craftable weapon video coming hopefully within the next few days as well. We'll talk some more weapon rolls there. Hop back into Garden, have fun with that. I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.